Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the AI InterConnect podcast. I'm your host, Laurent. On this show, we speak with founders and operators. We are building real company in the real world. And we focus on how technology, and especially AI, is reshaping how businesses is built and scale. AI Interconnect is about connecting people. We're building the future, shaping lesson from the field and learning directly from those doing the work. And today, I'm joined by Gaurub Pandey, CEO at Bajra Technology.
Yep,
And
that's me.
Bajra Technology is a software development company. Yeah, Bajra is a software development company that builds custom digital solution for international clients and is also developing its own in-house AI system. Gaurub, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Very happy
Thank you so
to
much for
have you on
having
the
me.
show.
I'm excited.
Yes, exciting, very exciting. We are in
Yep,
Kathmandu, Nepal.
very random.
Very amazing. And let's start with your background. Listener understand the path that led you here. You've built Bajra as a deeply technical company, and now you are also stepping into being the public face for it,
Yeah.
which is a big shift. Gaurav, how did your background as a technical founder lead you to build Bajra Technology, and how did you end up stepping into this most visible leadership role lately?
Sure. Like you said, I have a very technical background, so the public-facing role is not the most natural for me. I'll be completely honest there. I'm still getting used to it. In the beginning, after finishing up college in the United States, I worked in the Bay Area for a couple of years, and my parents still lived in Nepal. So just to go a little bit further back, I was born in America. My family moved here when I was 10, high school here, then went back for college, and then worked there for a couple of years. And at that point, I realized I wanted to give Nepal a shot. See if I can make a life work here. Not for any reason other than I just like this social life a little bit better. So after moving out here, I started working at a company for about 6 or 7 months. I was also playing jazz piano on the side. So before college, I played professional jazz piano for a couple of years. So I was doing that on the side as well. I realized I hated where I was working, and so I quit that job. And then I started asking my friends in the United States, like, hey, do you know of any freelance gigs that you could sort of turn me on to? A couple of friends, one friend of mine in particular, introduced me to the brother of somebody who went to Brown with me. I went to Brown University. So he introduced me to the brother of a guy I went to college with. And so his project was too big for me to handle alone. And so I'd always wanted to start a company. Even as a kid, it was one of the things I always wanted to do. And so it kind of felt like the perfect time. The circumstances demanded it. And so I started hiring. I put together, I registered here initially, and then later in the United States. I put together a team of about 2 or 3 developers, and we were working out of the kitchen of the apartment I was living in the beginning, just because I needed to get started right away, And so it was one of those like weird work wherever you can kind of stories. And then word of mouth kind of led to us getting a few more clients, building out the team a little bit more. And until this point, me and my co-founder and I, Nishanth, were doing sort of all of the lift on the sales front. We were taking all the calls, we were doing all the outreach, and it was working. And then around 2018, 2017, we realized that we didn't like doing that kind of stuff, so we thought we'd bring somebody on board to do it, help with that. That didn't work out too well, so we parted ways. And then I was just a default choice again to sort of transition into the public face of the company, so I'm in that process. I started about, 5 or 6 months ago and sort of am now really growing into it. So I represent the company at a couple of conferences. It's been interesting, let's say.
Wow, incredible story. I just love it. And okay, then what was your early moment where you realized that this company could become something bigger than a small
So
dev shop?
we've had a couple of customers that have been very loyal to us through the years. And one of them has been with us since 2015. One of our current customers has been with us since 2015. So when we realized that we had customers that were sticking with us and weren't looking anywhere else, were actually growing their engagements with us, we felt like we could actually make this a much bigger thing than what it was. It was about 10 to 15 people at the time. We just kept doing that same thing, like just going out of our way to do extra for our customers. And then that sort of led to word of mouth. You'll hear me say word of mouth a lot because that's been the primary mode of growth so far. But we just killed ourselves doing a great job, and that's and then once we went up to like 5 or 6 customers that had teams of like 5 or 6 devs each, we thought we could really grow this if we kept at this. So that's kind of when we realized that we should try to take this to the next level, and we started getting some processes in place, getting some proper project management, as opposed to just the top of our heads, which in the beginning it was. So we started putting all of those sort of systems into place. And that's really when this is about 2016, I want to say, when we felt that we could really grow into this over time.
Wonderful. Love it. What lesson from those early days, early years, still shape how you make decision today?
In some ways, one of the things I just had this thought actually. One of the things that kind of stuck with us is we are probably a little more risk averse than we should be, but I think that's also served us well in certain periods. When we started the company, Nepal had like 16 hours of load shedding, so we wouldn't have power for 16 hours a day. So we had generators, battery backups, all that kind of thing. There was a big earthquake in 2015, so we've navigated all of these things. We try, I think, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but we try not to go crazy with the risk. I wouldn't say saying we're risk averse is probably the wrong term. We're a little bit more careful sometimes than the situation warrants, but I think that's also served us well in the long run. That being said, all those experiences have also taught us to sort of take things in stride, not stress out about when things go wrong. 12 years ago, I probably would have panicked if some things that are happening now happened, but now it's kind of just part and parcel of life and part and parcel of running a company. So I think all of those experiences have kind of thickened our skin, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. You have been very clear that Bajra is first and foremost a software development company working with international clients, which already tell us a lot about your model. When you explain Bajra Technology to someone outside the tech industry, how do you describe what you actually do and who you help?
I mean, the first line, you said it yourself, we provide software development services for customers. We are branching out into our own products, but I'll probably touch upon that a little bit later. But we do the full gamut of software development. We do back-end services, we do front-end development, we do mobile applications. We've developed some specialty and some specialization in 2 areas. One is embedded systems. So we have quite a few customers who make their own hardware devices, and we write software that both goes on the devices, and also we develop connected applications, whether they be over BLE. I don't know how technical I should get on this podcast, so just stop me and ask me if I'm using too many acronyms. Whether it be over BLE or Wi-Fi Direct. So we write connected applications, whether they be mobile or desktop, that send data to the cloud or perform analysis right there. So that's one area where we've really done a lot of work, embedded systems and connected applications to those devices. And then the other area is sort of in the space of sustainability solutions. And I know that's a very wide and broad range, but we have like a waste management company who's our client. We have a company that helps people classify waste. We have a company that does massive solar installations for their customers. And we do data analytics for them by integrating with different inverter brands. So we do a lot of things, but they happen to sort of fall into these 2 spaces for the most part.
Okay.
Okay,
Wow.
so sorry,
Okay. Very diverse. Okay, then.
Overarching question.
Which type?
Somebody asked us. We do software development services, and we also do some AI development for companies in the embedded systems and sustainability solution space.
Yeah. Well, very clear. Very clear. Okay. Which type of client tend to get the most value from working with your team?
It would probably be somebody who has some sort of in-house software expertise. So maybe like a VP of engineering and maybe a couple of engineers. but wants to expand wants to quickly ramp up their software development capabilities, we can step in and provide that additional muscle, whether it be, we have a couple of stacks that we're very proficient in, Ruby on Rails being one of them, Python, Fast API, and those kinds of things being the other. And on the front end, we do React and Angular. So if somebody needs help on those, we have developers that are ready to go the next day. If you don't have any technical presence, we're also good, but sometimes things get lost in translation when it's just like, say example, it's a non-technical founder and us talking, sometimes things get lost in translation, although we've gotten much, much better at that one. So we have also actually helped a lot of startups develop their MVPs and deploy those out to production and all that kind of stuff as well. So we've worked with a very, very wide range of companies, but the ones that will get the most value, like I said, are people with software engineering teams or some software engineering expertise that need extra help on their.
Okay, that makes sense. Running a growing services company is a very different from building product startup. There are always trade-off between sales, delivery, and team capacity. Right now, what feels like the hardest part of running and scaling Bajra Technology?
Throughout the history of the company, it's always been lead generation. We're pretty good at sales when we get on calls with the right people. We are very good at delivering. The lead gen is the part. It's a tricky problem. You have to find the right person at the right time. They need what you have, right? You can't just email them randomly and expect them to jump on a call with you. So lead generation has traditionally always been the biggest difficulty, and that's what we are actively working on right now. And we have some ideas and we're testing them out. Hopefully something comes out of them. But, it is very different from developing a product startup. We've never taken any funding because that's the nature of the business. We have invested that money into products of our own, but those are still in the infancy and they're sort of growing. Okay,
very interesting. Lead gen. Okay, then is there a problem that keeps coming back over and over, even as you grow and improve the systems?
I think one of the things that I've noticed is, and this is maybe because I am very technical, I like to be in the weeds, and it's something I have to stop myself from doing. One of the problems I've often found is that what's represented on a project dashboard isn't always the 100% true state of a project. And that's not just to do with our team, it's also to do with like our customer teams and everything. Sometimes there's just, you log into the project management system and it's not exactly what the project state is. So you actually have to talk to people anyway to figure out what's going on. So that tends to be something that I think, it's something that's become much less frequent as our project managers have gotten much better. And as we sometimes we have to actually ask our customers to be better about updating the tickets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Having a single source of truth for the project.
They could do an effort.
It's a tricky thing to do as well. Be like, hey, can you please comment on that car that we asked questions about, right? So, having one source of truth tends to often be the most frequent thing that I've seen, at least.
Yeah, yeah, anecdotes. And what has changed recently in the market or your company that made things more complex?
So the use of AI agents in development has changed, a big change. And I think it's made the lead gen portion of the assignment a little more complicated. People are still on the fence about how much productivity gains there are for developers and all that kind of stuff. So I believe the numbers that are touted sometimes are a little too high. I think they're a little bit of hype, but there's no doubt that there are productivity gains, right? So how that's going to pan out is something that people are taking a wait and see approach with. So I think that's sort of introduced a layer of complexity for our efforts on that front. But otherwise on our end, I think, except for that, I think things are sort of business as usual and they're going pretty smoothly.
Yeah, definitely. You're in a unique position because you're not just talking about AI, but you're building internal AI systems inside the service company. That gives you a very practical perspective. And from your vantage points, working with clients and building your own AI solution, what shift around AI or software development matters most right now, but is still underappreciated?
So I think the biggest shift that's going to happen, and this is more of a long-term thing, I think. And I think underappreciated might be the wrong word, but I think it's not talked about enough, is training entry-level developers has become very, very difficult when you can vibe code everything. An example is about 2 months ago, I vibe coded a simple lemon orchard management. One of my friends runs a lemon farm in the western Nepal, and I vibe coded a lemon orchard management application with him for about 30 to 40 minutes. It took about 30 to 40 minutes, and what he needed was done, which is amazing. But then when it came time to deploy it, Claude used SQLite, I wanted Postgres, certain config values were wrong, and I knew how to fix those things very quickly because I have 18 years of software experience. But what happens when the juniors just use Claude to do everything and has never deployed anything themselves, right? How do they figure out exactly what to do, what to change? How do they figure out what's wrong when things... And I think this is something that we encounter here because you get a lot of times, like for our own internal products where we say, use AI all you want, the younger guys start using AI, and then they have, the first time they come across an issue that AI can't help them fix, they have no idea what to do. And digging through the code and figuring it out is something that seems to be a lost art and is probably going to get more and more rare. So hopefully someday these tools are good enough that you don't need to actually do that. That would be an amazing reality, but it's not there yet. So right now that is a struggle that I think not enough people talk about, to be honest. Maybe they are talking about it and I just haven't heard it. But I would love to see what other companies are doing as well, because we struggle with it quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see if I find some example or past guests
that
that could be
we have
example.
our
Yeah,
traineeship,
exactly.
which I probably will talk about a little bit later. But in that one, we got really good candidates, so we're kind of set in that respect. So we're happy. But it's a problem that I think is going to start coming up more and more.
During our pre-call, you shared two very concrete AI projects that team built in-house, and they are both very practical and very different from generic AI demos. Can you walk us through the AI transcription system you built for the Parliament of Nepal, and what made that project technically and operationally unique?
And the Parliament of Nepal, the Parliament Secretariat approached several tech companies about developing an automated transcription tool. They are legally required to be current with their transcriptions, just as a matter of historic record. And I think they're still like 4 or 5 years behind. When they reached out to us, they were about 4 years behind. So, and they have a team doing this and they're still not able to catch up. So what they said was, can you do something that's automated? And so we took a stab at it. Speech recognition is something I worked on in 2009 Cisco systems as well. And it's something that's always interested me. So I thought, this will be fun to look at. Back then it was hidden Markov models. Now, of course, it's neural networks or some form of neural network. And then, so we basically took the project on. We developed a tool that allowed for easy transcript editing because we were sure we were not going to get 100% accuracy. So that was the front end. The side of things, we evaluated several models, but we picked Wave2Vec 2 out of Meta AI Research. I think it was still called Facebook AI Research at that point. I'm not sure. But Meta released Wave2Vec 2, and AI for Bharat, which is this entity out of India, had done a different pre-training for it using Indic languages, so South Asian languages. So we first started out with plain vanilla Wave2Vec 2. We fine-tuned it on a Nepali data set we found on the internet, and it was not that great. And then I can't remember if it was me or one of our engineers. Somebody had this idea. It was like, if it's only 601 speakers, because we're only doing the parliamentarians, why don't we just overfit on the 601 parliamentarians? It was the engineer. Okay, now I remember the entire sequence. It was the engineer had this idea, and I said, that's brilliant, let's try it. But then we needed a data set. And at the same time, Wave2Vec 2 Indic came out. So we used Wave2Vec 2 Indic to transcribe the parliamentary sessions that had already happened, and then we put it through the editing tool that we'd created, and then edited all the transcripts by hand, about 54 hours of data, and then fed that through Wave2Vec 2 Indic again to fine-tune it, and then came out with a model that was doing 95% for almost all speakers and 99% for some of them, right? And then we found there was an issue with numbers. It couldn't transcribe Nepali numbers well. Financial years here across 2 years. Somebody might say which means 8081. So it would transcribe that as 8081, but you really need to write it as 80/81. So little things like that. So we added, although we did 3 separate hours of audio for just numbers. And then we fine-tuned that further, and after that, it was just amazing. And we went in and demoed it, and they were ecstatic about it. The Parliament Secretariat loved it, and we were in talks to sort of do procurement and government procurement. Everything's like very slow, so obviously those talks dragged on forever. And then I'm assuming most people know September 8th and 9th there were massive protests in Nepal, and then the Parliament building was burned down. There's no Parliament right now, so there's no Parliament transcription right now, so that is on hold completely. Maybe it'll pick up after we have elections. For now, that's the status of that, but that was an amazingly fun project that we did. And there's a lot more aspects to it, like speaker diarization, separating speakers, speaker identification, because the transcripts have to be labeled by who's talking. So all of that stuff was part of that.
Very interesting.
Those are their own models that are separately fine-tuned to identify the specific speakers in Parliament. But it all came from that one brilliant insight of there's only 601 speakers, so let's just overfit.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Great. I love it. And
it's still a fun project. I love talking about it. We still demo it every now and then, so it's fun.
And then how did that project change how you think about AI and the real world constraints?
That was where we realized, I think firmly, at least now, right now, with transformers, which is what we have, whether we like it or not. We're not going to get rid of the human in the loop. And I think we fully embraced it. When we went and demoed, we said, look, you're going to need some people at least. Like, this will make it a lot easier for you, but you'll need some people. And I think subsequently later on, every AI project that we tried, we had at least some allowance for like keeping that human in the loop. So that's where our approach really changed.
Okay, love it. And the second project you mentioned was your AI-based examination system to handle thousands of applicants. How did you design that AI-driven exam, and what problem were you trying to solve internally?
We have a traineeship that runs every 3 to 4 months. We call it a traineeship for legal reasons in Nepal. You're not allowed to call it an internship. It's complicated. So we call it a traineeship, and we have multiple batches each year. We've had up to 4,000 applications for a single batch for 20 slots. So we were getting way too many applications. Good problem to have. I'm not complaining, but we were getting more applications than we could serve. Let's say when we started out the traineeship, we were doing the examinations in our offices, but that became a problem that we couldn't handle. So we decided we had to fix it. First step was figuring out exactly what to do, and the first thing we said was design at least an exam system that we can do online that will do cheat detection. So all of our applicants are required to, they get a link when they've passed resume screening. They get a link that says you can open this between this date and this date, and block off an hour, make sure nobody's in the room, that kind of thing. And then once they click open, their mic is tested, their camera is tested, their browser has to be full screen. You can't exit full screen, things like that. And then, it tracks eye movement. So if you look a little bit up or down, flashes a warning. It just says, please look at the screen. If you talk, it says, we're capturing this, by the way. And then it takes a screenshot of those moments so that we know. We didn't want to store all the video. That seemed A, too intrusive, B, too much storage for a problem that, because we'll also interview them later, right? So it's not like the examination is the only evaluation. So it's okay if a few people get through the examination that didn't deserve it. We'll catch them at the interview. We have all this stuff in place. We jumble up the answers. So even if two people are sitting right next to each other and they get the same question, the options will be jumbled up. So they can't actually, they'll just get it wrong. And then later on what we did was, later on after we went through a couple of rounds of this, we decided we needed more questions. So we had about 300 questions that our team had contributed. All of us pretty much put in one question, 1 or 2 questions each. And we got to about 300 over time. And then we fed those questions into ChatGPT, I think it was, and said, give me 5 just like this. And then that spit out about 1,500 and then we manually reviewed. We split it up into groups. We split it up, among the company, and we each reviewed about 15 to 20 of them. And then we got, the technical people reviewed the technical ones, and non-technical people reviewed the other ones, and we got to about 1,345 questions for the next round. And then the next exam, we did it again, and we did 3 options. So we had 4,500 questions that we then reviewed and reduced down to around like 4,000 or something. So we have a question bank that's huge. The goal would be to just generate the questions on the fly, just do them dynamically, but there are enough questions that are wrong that we still have to manually verify them. And actually, I just had an idea where we could just ask the examinee to mark a question as wrong, and then they'll get another one. Maybe that'll work. We'll see. We'll try it next time.
I love it. Okay, this is great. You're at an interesting moment, growing internationally, building internal AI capability, and stepping into a more visible leadership role, obviously, for the past 7 months or 6 months. Looking ahead, 12 to 18 months, what does success realistically look like for Bajra Technology?
Okay, so that's a good question. There's two aspects to this. One is my co-founder right now is focusing on a game studio that we have sort of as like a startup within a company. My co-founder and VP of Solution Delivery, they're focused on that. So the goal would be to become profitable in that realm, for the game studio to start making money. They make mobile games. They've produced 2. One is Nepal Saga, which is a passion project. It's set in Nepal-looking landscape. It's quite nice. There's like Nepali-style temples, Nepali-style stupas. So it's a fun game. The other one is called Puppy Saga, which is ad-driven. That one we're actually trying to make money off of. The first one doesn't have ads. It's free. This second one we're trying to make money off of. So we're not at a positive return on ad spend yet, but the goal would be to get there within the next year. And then right now, if I could sit here in 12 months and tell you that our lead generation pipeline was solid, I would be a very happy camper. I think those are the 2 things that if we can sort out, then my life would be significantly easier and much more pleasant. And we could grow, because we have that pipeline of talent, we could grow in a very unconstrained way. We can just run traineeship after traineeship, get more people, train them up for 6 months, a year, whatever it takes, and then have them work on these projects that we can bring in. So that would be where ideally I would want to be.
Fair enough. Definitely very good. What are you deliberately choosing not to do, even if there are opportunities?
Hard to stand out in that space, I feel, although I am on the AI InterConnect podcast, talking about the AI stuff we're doing. So maybe not explicitly saying we're an AI company. I think we're not doing that yet. Mostly because nowadays it doesn't sound genuine when you do it almost. Does that make sense? Right? So and AI is always part of something else, right? There's no, except for maybe ChatGPT or OpenAI, it's not just a solution for ChatGPT is also useful when people use it for things, right? So everything we do will have AI in it moving forward. So that's why I don't specifically think it's necessary to market ourselves like that. So embedded systems, there's going to be edge AI, there's going to be AI on the cloud on those numbers. You're going to need predictive analytics, predictive maintenance for all sorts of hardware devices, right? Sustainability, you're going to need AI for everything there too. You're going to need to predict solar irradiance values in different places to see how much power you're going to generate. And then this is something we've actually done before. We've actually looked at satellite imagery from NOAA to see if there's cloud cover over specific latitude, longitude, to see how that will affect the solar irradiance values, right? So it's always going to be part of something, and I think, and hopefully the talk track around it will also move in that direction, because AI in itself, AI is a means to an end. What is the end is the more important part, right?
Yeah. No, definitely.
So
Okay, then what decision? It's not an AI show anyway for us. What decision feels most important for you as a CEO right now?
That's a good question. I think in the recent past, the decision this is the recent past. There have obviously been other ones in the past that were also quite monumental. But in the recent past, for me, deciding to sort of go back to our roots and being a technology first company and really putting our customers first, and this is all part of the transition of me sort of becoming the face, putting our customers first and making that decision and following through with it has been the most important thing we've done in the last year at least. So that's that for me is the most important decision we've made. And there are others that are also equally important. I think agreeing to fund this game studio, which is also because we would like to grow our product side revenue as well. We want it to be a 50-50 split at least, ideally, right? So deciding to fund that is also a very, very important part of what we've done. And I think it's all centered around that sort of let's be a technology company first sort of thing. My co-founder loves developing games, and so pursuing that for him it's a pure passion. I see him working day in and day out, and he's happy. So, sort of letting the technology sort of guide us.
It's important. Beautiful. I love it. If you had fewer constraints, team time, capital, what will you accelerate first?
This is going to be completely random because I haven't touched on it yet at all during this conversation, but I would start working on AI in healthcare tomorrow. That's my long-term dream as well. I think there is space to do things on the device end. I don't know if you've read about this company. I can't remember their name, but they instead of using infusion pumps that are very expensive, infusion pumps are what hospitals use to sort of do controlled IV drips. And instead of using those expensive ones, they developed one that uses infrared to measure drop volume, and they were able to produce it for a fraction of the cost, right? Things like that, but also then leveraging AI to sort of interpret new sources of data from these new kinds of devices would be where I would want to explore. We actually worked on something, a handheld ultrasound that we imported from China. It was very low cost. We wrote an app that interfaced with it, and then we were trying to train a convolutional network to sort of identify regions of interest. But we weren't allowed to import them later, and the government of Nepal sort of shut us down on that front. But things like that, using data from lower end, cheaper devices to sort of try to make healthcare cheaper, because in this part of the world, MRI machines still cost the same, if not more expensive here, and the people can't afford to pay as much for healthcare. So that's something that I find a little bit wrong. I've been around hospitals since my mother is a doctor, so I've been around hospitals and doctors since I was a kid, and so that would be the first thing I would do. Personally, I would do that.
Okay, we need another show for talking about AI healthcare. Okay, you have seen, yeah, we'll do. We'll keep the conversation going. You've seen both technical and operational side of building a company. And that's very valuable for other founders and operators listening. Looking back, what decision took too long to make?
I hate to keep coming back to this one moment in the history of the company, but I think we should have gone back to being a technical team first company earlier. I think we waited too long. We waited 7 years to make that decision, and we should have made it in year 2 or 3, I think. So you live, you learn.
Yeah,
forward, but, if looking back, I think if a situation isn't working out and your gut tells you that it's not going to work out in the long term, you should take care of that situation as soon as possible and not wait until things become unbearable.
You learn. You're young. You're going to do another 50 companies. Then you apply that. What habit or system made the biggest difference in how your company runs today?
In terms of a habit, it's less of a habit, more of an urge from my side. It's learning to let go and trusting people was the hardest thing. It's still hard for me sometimes, but I think getting the right people in the right place and then trusting them to do the right thing has been the biggest change in me personally over the last 14 years of running this shop. And I think that's been the best thing for me, is me personally and for the company as well. So that is something that is very difficult working in technology.
Beautiful.
For a technical founder to do, but it's absolutely essential. And I know everybody will say, no, I can make it work this way, but trust me, you can't. You have to trust the people that you put in place to do things. Yeah.
Exactly. Trust your team. Definitely. Okay, then let's try to find another one. But what advice will you give yourself 5 years ago?
What was I give myself 5 years ago? That's a really good question. I'd probably tell myself, and this is gonna sound silly, I'd probably tell myself to stick with my gut. And I keep saying that, but I think that's also another important thing. If your gut tells you something is wrong and off, it's probably wrong and off. So listen to it and then rationalize it. Like, don't just listen to your gut and do whatever you want, right? You have to then think about it. But you should listen to your gut to tell you what to think about. So that's the advice I would give my 5-year-old self. That's the advice I would give my 15-year-old self too. If your gut tells you something, think about it.
Yeah, I love it. Gaurub, thank you so much for joining. Strong insight into your journey, your industry, and the work you are doing at Bajra Technology. Thank you very much for your time. It's great. Yeah, and many other ideas, and we need another conversation. Where do people can reach you or learn about your company?
Website, bajratechnologies.com, or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easily searchable. Also, or email gp@bajratechnologies.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Gaurub. Okay, and that's it, unfortunately. That's it for today's episode.
Sorry.
No, hold on. That's it. Yeah, for this episode of AI InterConnect. And if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who's building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building.